Eric. I think we're ready to alert and turn everything on and get this going.
Okay, sir. Let me record the meeting. Okay, sir. We're on. We're good to go, Council Member.
Connected.
Mr. Villanueva, are we ready?
Yes, sir. We're ready, sir. We're good to go.
We're ready to go. Oh, okay, we're ready to go live. Let me know when we are live.
We're now live, sir.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to the virtual Homelessness and Poverty Committee, our regular hearing. This is the last hearing of the year, and I'm joined by my colleagues Monica Rodriguez and Mike Bonin. We're expected to also be joined by Mr. Rue this morning. Before I turn it over to our clerk to call the roll, I'd like to remind everyone to make sure that they're on mute when not speaking. Mr. Villanueva, could you please call the roll?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Councilmember Micho Farrell.
Present.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Bonin.
Here.
Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson. Councilmember David Rue. You have a quorum, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Villanueva. In a moment, we will take up to 1 hour from members of the public who wish to comment on items specific to today's agenda, and 1 minute for general public comment. I'll turn it over to our city attorney to explain the speaking rules to the members of the public who are calling in, and to our city clerk to provide the necessary information for the public to dial in.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the city attorney. To members of the public calling in, when it's your turn to speak, please state which of the agenda items you would like to speak on. You have 1 minute per item to speak, up to 2 minutes total, and 1 minute for general public comment. We will tell you when your time is up. When speaking on the agenda item, you must be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as we can. If you are not speaking on topic, or if we cannot tell whether you are speaking on a specific agenda item, you will get one brief warning from myself or the chair. If you do not immediately get clearly back on topic, or again stray off topic, the chair will cut you off and you will have to forfeit the rest of your speaking time. We will move on to the next speaker. We will take up to 1 hour total of public comment. Please press *9 to speak. As soon as you hear someone address you on the phone, please press *6 and state your name and state which agenda items you would like to speak on. We know the situation is not ideal, and we thank you for your cooperation ahead of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. The clerk will now read the instructions for the public to call in.
The audio for this meeting is broadcast live on the internet at www.lacity.org/government/follow-meetings. The live audio can also be heard at 213-621-2489. Again, that number is 213-621-2489 or at 818-904-9450. Again, that's 818-904-9450. Members of the public who would like to offer public comment on the items listed on the agenda should call 669-254-5252. Again, the number is 669-254-5252 and use meeting ID number 160-817-9748. Again, the meeting ID number is 160-817-9748. And then press pound. Press pound again when prompted for participant ID. Once admitted into the meeting, press *9 to request to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Villanueva. Just a program note here, if all the items on today's agenda are approved, there will be an additional 122 new supportive housing units. All right, we're ready to take public comment. Please bring in the first caller.
Caller with the phone number ending in 6276. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you. I would like to do general comment and item 6, please.
Okay, that's 1 minute for general and 1 minute for the item. You may begin.
I'm a resident of Echo Park and a member of the Friends of Echo Park Lake, and I am begging that the council immediately clear all encampments in Echo Park Lake. These encampments have developed into active weaponized crime zones, putting our vulnerable, unhoused friends and neighbors in very real life and death situations. In the past 6 months, we've had 3 deaths and 3 shootings just in the past week. This is from the East Sider newspaper yesterday. 3 recent assaults with a deadly weapon, all near the same corner within a few days of each other, involving homeless persons, according to the LAPD. All of the assaults took place near the intersection of Glendale Boulevard and Park Avenue, one of the entrances to Echo Park Lake. The witnesses as well as the victims were all transients via LAPD. It's been challenging to find out who these people are. We've had very little luck with victims coming forward. You've failed to keep your residents safe, and our unhoused friends go to bed not knowing if they will be assaulted or worse. And our housed residents are terrified to leave their house after dark. These lives have been lost. The lives that have been lost are ones that you've been tasked with protecting, and you've failed. Please do not fail our community any longer. Clear the encampments, provide housing for our unhoused neighbors, and do the job we voted you in to do. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And caller, we are working on ensuring a safe indoor space for everyone who is dealing with homelessness at the lake. Next caller.
Caller with the phone number ending in 6111. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
On item 6 in general.
Okay,
My
that's
name is
1 minute.
Brett.
Oh, thank you. And that's 1 minute for each item. Please begin.
My name is Brett Katz. I'm the mayor of Hidden Hills, but I also have a business that's in the Chatsworth area on the North Ridge corridor between Owens Mouth and Jordan. And we're having problems with unhoused defecating in our place of business in the front yard. Anything that's not nailed down or locked down is being stolen. There's so much trash on the sidewalks. You're unable to move down the sidewalk. You can't use any of the throughways. So some of my employees who wish to walk can't walk in the area. It's not safe. We're finding syringes in the parking lot, and it's unsafe. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 8074. Please press star 6 to unmute. Caller with the phone number ending in 8074. Please press star 6 to unmute.
Caller, are you there? Let's go with the next available caller.
Caller with the phone number ending in 7695. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Colleen Pick, and I want to speak on 6 in general.
All right, that's 1 minute for each. Please begin.
Okay, so basically, I am a business owner in Chatsworth, and we have been here 40 years. I also live here my entire life. The homeless situation in front of our building is just becoming unbearable. The encampment is growing, even though we have the police come out because they have a generator running in the street. They have the sidewalks crowded with stuff. We've had copper wire stolen from our building on top of the roof, large potted plant stolen, trash left out. They created a shower behind our building using our water, which we dismantled, but then the next time we came, the water was just left on overnight. I don't even want to get that bill. It's becoming very difficult for business owners to survive in this economy, but to have this in front of them and in front of their buildings, and it's just by assisting, we're encouraging more. And that, to me, is where the problem lies, because we're just getting more and more of these encampments. It's growing every single day. I suggest possibly we use the Army barracks or whatever that was down in Van Nuys area. When I went to work, I don't know if that's open or not, but it seems like if we have a large place to put people, that's better than trying to buy each one a unit. An individual housing unit is ridiculous. I spend half of my salary just staying afloat in my own home, and to just give it away to people because they don't want to work or can't work, supposedly, is wrong. It's just, to me, it's wrong. And I think we cannot encourage this. We cannot keep supporting it because we're just going to get more and more of it. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 0555. Please press star 6 to unmute. Caller with the phone number ending in 0555. Please press star 6 to unmute. Caller with the phone number ending in 2505. Press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what item you'd like to speak on.
Good morning. My name is Nicole. I'd like to speak on item 6, please.
Okay, 1 minute, Nicole. Please begin.
Hi. Good morning, committee members. My name is Nicole. I reside and work in Echo Park, and I'm speaking for many, many other Echo Park residents. And we say that it is time to give Echo Park Lake priority and put all of your efforts into housing the people that currently occupy the tents around the lake. We support Mitch O'Farrell in all of his efforts to do so as well. We also support the various organizations that are working towards this common goal, such as Friends of Echo Park Lake, the LAPD, and other organizations. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 1403. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
All the fucking items and generalized public comment, if I may.
Okay, 2 minutes for items, 1 minute for general.
Yes, thank you so much. Now, we're going to turn the convention center into the largest housing project for homeless ever. It's about fucking time, isn't it? You could have built Farmers Field, had 2 NFL teams, and $1.6 billion of additional tax revenue. But instead, Mitchell Farrell, Mike Gordon, and that dumb million laws. I'm really surprised. I can't believe Mike Biden came up with that number. Hell, I'm going to smoke crack right now. Excuse me. Even I know that math doesn't make any goddamn sense. So, I don't know why. Why can't you house 5,000 people in there? Just take and stack them up, one fucking asshole after another one, and you get them out of there from Echo Park Lake. Sweet. But homeless people don't want to be inside a convention center. Then you can have waterfront property for free at Echo Park Lake. And it's a nice place to take a weekend, too. Try it sometime. I know some city council members that do it. You know what I mean? Like Bonin. Okay, now I get to my general comment. Why are you motherfuckers complaining? You guys voted for all these council members. You vote Democrat every fucking time. You vote for every tat. So of course the city is going to look like shit, smell like shit, and be shit, because you vote for shit. That's what you get. Shit in, shit out. Ask about it on what happens when you stick shit in, you get shit out. You know what it is. Marquise Harris Dawson's not here. Because he doesn't want black folks. And David Rowe, he was suspended from the council, so he can't be here. What the fuck's nuclear ramen? So good job, fellas. But with all the hostilities, I wish you all a happy and safe holiday. Thank you.
Okay,
Caller
next call, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 0985. Please press *6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Peggy Lee Kennedy. I'd like to speak on items, 6, 4, 3, and general public comment.
Okay, Peggy, you have 3 minutes total, 2 for the items.
So, number one, I'd like to say that I've been to Echo Park, and I've met a lot of the people that are living there, and they really, I think, have solutions in mind. I think saying they don't work and calling them criminals is inappropriate, especially since homelessness is, the people who are homeless, and I'll speak on their behalf. There are people who are disabled, people who have mental illness, and, domestic violence, recovering, all kinds of people. And so to lump them into an arena, I think is inappropriate, which moves me on to another agenda item, the LA Convention Center. I mean, it's a good idea to try and get a shelter, but this whole report back thing is some kind of a joke. By the time you get that done, the winter will be over. I think it would be more appropriate to get people sleeping bags and tarps and tents. Now, item 3, the Homeless Strategy Committee, which I call the Homeless No Strategy Committee. I really feel like, can you insist that there's an actual strategy that they come up with? How about going to the city planning department and getting a list of all of the property that you can use to convert immediately into housing for people? And I have to tell you, putting people in jail is no solution. It is the worst thing you can do, especially if people are sick. And that is congregate living. If you look at the statistics of COVID in congregate living spaces that the LA County provides, jails are super high. So criminalizing people is the worst thing, the most evil thing you could do right now. Solutions. Please focus on solutions that are humane. I beg you. Immediate, humane solutions for these populations. Not just going and listening to people complaining. I understand businesses are having a hard time. I get that. But these people are dying 4 a day. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 1108. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Yeah, hi, Daniel Gus. All items and general, please.
Okay, 2 minutes for your items and 1 minute for general.
Good stuff. Mr. O'Farrell, we disagree on a lot of issues, but I support what you're trying to do here, or whoever's idea it is, with the convention center. So despite my past criticisms, I do appreciate what you're trying to do there. It is about 5 or 10 years behind schedule. I know you weren't in office 10 years ago, but it's 5 or 10 years. And the question is, how are you going to guarantee that the convention center is going to be COVID-free when people who have a generally healthier, safer lifestyle can't dine on the sidewalk, but being indoors with potentially infected air being recirculated is safe for these people? It's a very good idea, but it is very, very late in the game to be discussing this matter. For Mr. O'Farrell, it's not a criticism, but there are disturbingly close homeless camps on the 101 freeway alongside of it. I've seen people and teenagers and dogs running alongside the 101 freeway. Please make that a priority, mostly in your district, Alvarado to Hollywood Boulevard, that kind of thing. Regarding some things that were discussed yesterday, Whiteman Airport, if you're going to shut it down, make that the central point for homeless housing in L.A. I would suggest shutting down the L.A. Zoo, which is an arcane, abusive facility. It's already got what you need there to start building a homeless housing there. Whiteman Airport, LA Zoo. By the way, the outhouses that you're putting by the LA River near various homeless camps are being constantly overturned. I'm not sure that they are a net positive anymore if the same human waste winds up on our sidewalks and streets only as a result of the homeless people overturning the outhouses. It's a good idea, but I guess they're not being appreciated. Another thing, Skylar Gray from an attorney in Mayor Garcetti's office is withholding public records regarding Project Room Key, which further builds the mistrust of City Council. Please make sure these records are handed over so we don't have to sue for them. And lastly, council members, let me look at my clock here. Oh, I'm in general public comment. Nuri Martinez has been ignoring pleas for help for homeless people. I have referred to her office, including a homeless woman with a cat who lives in the shadows of the Orange Line, a few hundred feet from Nuri's office. She's also been non-responsive to people who live on a huge lot at the southwest corner of Sepulveda and Sherman Way. If our city council president doesn't respond to pleas directly from homeless people that I refer to her, or that I ask her offices about, we have much bigger problems. You can't not respond to homeless people simply because I referred them. If you do, then you're undermining the faith that you want us to have in you. We do have faith in what you're at least trying to do, but make sure that all council members respond to requests from homeless people and gadflies alike, and you will find that there will be more respect when you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 6098. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Yes, the name is Dika Bodine, Chancelloress. I'd like to speak on item 6, the homelessness and poverty. We live in a retirement modular home park. 2 weeks ago, the police were called. Helicopter came in. One of the people from the homeless camps came in swinging a machete and was going after people. One of the people that he almost got was an 87-year-old man on a walker. We've had people come in here and intimidate our manager. One person actually pushed her down on the steps of her home. Our garden park here, routinely we find homeless people sleeping in there. We've had an increase in our rent because we've had to put up security cameras. All of our facilities, even before they were locked down because of COVID, were being abused. People coming in, taking showers, going into the swimming pool to defecate. On Sunday, I was out on my deck, and I saw a person that obviously was mentally ill or extremely high on something take his clothes off.
That's been your 1 minute for this item, ma'am. We heard you, and thank you for calling in.
Caller with the phone number ending in 5239. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
This is Don Evans, Canoga Park. I'd like to speak on homelessness, whatever item that is, I think number 6. Very simply, I've heard a lot of comments now. I've heard a lot of comments about all the people who are struggling with homeless people in their neighborhood, who are defecating, who are parked, who are depositing trash. But the answer is not just to move these people from point A to point B to point C. The answer is that the city council needs to look at the actual cause of homelessness. What is the cause of homelessness? I know there are some people who have drug problems, who have mental issues, but we now have a problem with a lot of people who are homeless because they lost their jobs thanks to COVID-19. So you have to look at what is the cause of the homelessness and then take action on the root cause. Simply moving people around and pushing them out of your neighborhood is not a solution. That's my view. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, sir, and I hope you'll listen in on the rest of the hearing today. Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 9778. Please press star 6 to unmute. Caller with the phone number ending in 9778. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Good morning. My name is Jeffrey Peck, and I would like to speak on items 3, 6, and general business.
Okay. That is 2 minutes for the 2 items and 1 minute for general.
Thank you. I was born and raised in this city in 1950. I've lived here all my life. 40 years ago, I started a company. It's a commercial printing company here in Chatsworth called Clear Print. Despite everything, we've still managed to stay in business. However, in the last 2 years, the homeless situation has become unbearable, and it's an impediment to business. By the way, I'm also the past president of Printing Industries Association. We have nearly 1,000 member companies here in Los Angeles, and I'm currently a member of that association. So I'm speaking on behalf of many small business here in the LA city. Our personal experiences, since the police are no longer allowed to enforce the laws that were passed due to an edict issued by Mayor Garcetti, this is what's occurred. We've had the homeless dump poop and bottles of urine right in front of our building. A couple weeks ago, one peed on our rear door. They stole a potted plant, a large potted plant in front of our building, and recently they stole the copper wire on top of our roof that feeds 2 air conditioning and heating units. So the south end of our building no longer has heat. They siphon gas from our trucks and cars parked in our parking lot overnight. They throw trash in our flower beds. They block the sidewalk totally so there's no ADA access. They take needed spaces for workers, and when these young ladies want to walk from their cars, which are now parked farther away from their work, they have to somehow get past the homeless encampments. They're running generators on the street at night, which is illegal. And they cut into the street light recently, which disabled several lights on our block, which is unsafe. So I could go on and on with what's happening, but it's intolerable, and it's no longer actionable. The police come out. I call them almost every day, but they tell me there's little they can do because their legs have basically been cut off at the knees. Here's my request. I want the city council and the mayor to allow the police to do their jobs, enforce the laws, cite illegal activities, cite illegally parked vehicles that have no registration or expired registration, shock tires, get the homeless to move after 72 hours, and if all else fails, tow them away, just like they used to do. When they could still tow the vehicles, we didn't have a massive problem like we have now. When you reward bad behavior and encourage people to continue to deal drugs, which is another problem we have, I'm looking at it right across the street through my bedroom, through my office window right now. You get more bad behavior. If you permit it and tolerate it, you get what you permit, and it's just more bad behavior. The solution solution is to build barracks, permanent tents, and put the homeless in give them a bed, give them a roof over their head, give them 3 meals a day, and give them the opportunity to get off their drugs, their alcohol problems, and train them for work.
Thank you, sir.
Do not give them the apartment.
That's been your 3 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Caller with the phone number ending in 4086. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
General item. My name is Monica Dragavon.
Okay, 1 minute, Monica.
Okay. We've already heard the problems from the criminal transients and drug addicts and untreated mentally ill. And it's unfair to allow this in society. We all know this. And we expect a certain element of safety and quality of living. That's why we pay taxes, and that's what the government should take care of. When we voted for HHH, people were compassionate and wanted to give housing to unhoused people. But the Los Angeles version of the Housing First model enables addicts. You're simply sweeping them into the houses, and they're going to come out, and all the same stuff is going to happen wherever the Housing First is. That's why people are NIMBYs. They need long-term detox first, not 2 weeks. You know, if you look at other countries' Housing First, you know, there was one I read, he was in detox for a year. By the time he got his house, he was so thankful and stayed clean. I have written the mayor, of course, got no response.
Thank you.
We
hear
need
you,
data.
but that's been 1 minute. We heard you, and thank you for calling in.
Caller with the phone number ending in 5179. Please press star 6 to unmute. Caller with the phone number ending in 5179. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak.
Hello, my name is Karen Waters. I'm the Vice President of Granada Hills North Neighborhood Council, and speaking on behalf of stakeholders and myself, and supporting everything that has been said thus far regarding the situations and the invasion of neighborhoods and the public safety crisis. The proposed solution, this is item number 6, I'm sorry, is to relocate the unhoused away from the residential areas and the business areas to spaces that the city should be able to identify. If the city can also work with the state to identify and work collaboratively, it is very important to the safety. We receive so many complaints, all that you've heard here today. So if we can get, crime is crime. Regardless of whether you have a house or you do not, crime is crime. So that is never acceptable. And if we can have porta potties placed at where the unhoused are located and some sort of mobile unit to help.
That's been your minute. We hear you, and I do hope that everyone who's calling in will listen to the entire hearing today. And also, we're going to do 1 hour of comments, so that's why we have to keep the comments very brief, 1 minute for the items and 1 minute for general. So thanks for understanding that, and let's have our next caller.
Caller with the phone number ending in 8940. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
My name is Katie Skirping, and I would like to speak on item 6 in general.
Okay, that's 1 minute for each. Please begin.
Hi, my name is Katie Skirping. I live at Lexington Avenue. There is also a homeless encampment here that has grown. It's at Myra and Lexington, just below Sunset Boulevard. I echo the concerns of everyone at Echo Park with the homeless encampment growing. We do have regularly scheduled cleaning, which with Mitch O'Farrell's office, which we greatly appreciate. Unfortunately, the sidewalks are becoming, you can't walk on them anymore. And we just want to agitate for outreach services from the city and LACA, you know, as soon as possible, because obviously the police are not going to be coming in any longer, which is fine, but we do want to agitate for outreach services immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 7456. Please press star 6 to unmute. Your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Kristen, and I would like to speak on item 6 and general comments.
Okay, 1 minute for each. Kristen, please begin.
Thank you. I am extremely concerned as a resident of Echo Park and as a mental health professional. Allowing the warehousing of our unhoused neighbors and their belongings at Echo Park Lake is negligent and dangerous. As you know, the unhoused are the most vulnerable residents in our community, and they are being victimized on a daily basis, as are the wildlife at the lake. The situation has grown to such a proportion that it's hard to know if there's really any way to control or fix it because of the assaults, the shootings, including the one that took place at 9 o'clock in the morning on November 28th. And if that's not a wake-up call that it's not safe for anyone to be at the lake in its current state, then I don't know what is. So I know we need temporary shelter as soon as possible, and we need to get caseworkers and advocates into these camps to help provide support and guidance to these residents, because obviously they are not able to care for themselves. So we need to step up as a community to provide them with the support and the resources that they need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 0525. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Good morning. My name is Valeska. It's number 6 and general.
Okay. 1 minute for each item. Please begin.
Yes, I'm a resident of Granada Hills and have been for the last 35 years. I want to talk about the homeless situation on Balboa and Devonshire, and also on Pettit and San Jose. I live on Ruffner. I used to take a walk every day, but I can't anymore because the sidewalks are not safe. They're blocked, and there's so much garbage and all kinds of stuff on Balboa and Devonshire. Also, there was a recent shooting at Ralph's by one of the transients, and it's really getting to be worse every day. There's so much garbage in there, and I do understand a lot of the folks need mental health rather than just being moved from one area to another, because I think that's what happened. Before they were at the Granada Hills Library on Chatsworth and Pettit, and I think it was just a cat and mouse game because now they're all on Balboa and Devonshire. Something needs to be done because it is very close to the residents. I've lived there for so many years. My mom passed away just last week. I can't even have a curbside, for just after her funeral. I wanted to have a curbside just where cars would gather and we would just, people would just pay their respects. I can't do that because there's so many transients in the neighborhood. They walk on Ruffner to Pettit Park, and my guests would not feel safe. So I'm pleading with you to please take care of this problem and have our neighborhood safe again. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 9896. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, good morning. My name is Sarah Watts, and I'd like to speak on number 6 in general, please.
Okay, 1 minute for each. Please begin.
I live on a residential street in Silver Lake that is currently experiencing spillover from nearby homeless encampments in the more commercial areas located on Sunset and Fountain and the Myra underpass. And I echo so many of the other concerns that have been expressed by other callers about what happens when the housing crisis and the homelessness crisis is all of a sudden laid at your doorstep. And I'm calling today to urge you, our elected officials, to take immediate and compassionate action to not only provide housing, but to provide the essential wraparound services that our neighbors need to reach their true human potential. Thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 7040. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi there, my name's Julie, and I would like to speak on general comment and item 6.
Hi, Julie. 1 minute for each. Please begin.
Okay, so I've lived in Echo Park for 15 years. I've always been an advocate for the homeless, but the issue, one at Echo Park Lake and also around Sunset Alvarado and Elsinore Street and Mohawk, there's a couple of abandoned houses, and we had a big thing with police coming in and homeless encampment taking over with machetes and weapons, and it's a constant battle. So one thing I wondered is there a way to enforce property owners that just have abandoned houses to fence or do something to prevent people from squatting? Secondly, about Echo Park Lake, I understand about homeless people, but many people there, I believe, aren't even homeless. The woman who died in the summertime was a college student, and she was there for protest, died of fentanyl, and was not even homeless. She was just camping out. And the guy who just got shot, Devon McFarlane Brown, whose Instagram is Devon M. Brown, is an activist. He's the one who took over the Marriott, and he's there getting shot, talking about how he's going to kill Garcetti and Mitch O'Farrell. I find him to be a really violent person who is living there currently, and really, I think, getting everyone to turn a little more violent. And it's not just people who are homeless. I think there's people who are doing drugs, and it's just too dangerous now for me to walk in my neighborhood. I go visit my mom in Camarillo to walk, and it's just, you know, it's heartbreaking, and I have a lot of feelings towards people who are homeless, but I do think there's a bunch of opportunists who are abusing drugs, and that if it's a park, then can't we enforce just that that's a safe space for people, and that they just aren't allowed to camp out there for free.
Julie, thank you.
I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. So everyone who's listening, if you and Julie, if anyone has an address for an abandoned property that is attracting nuisance and or criminal activity, please call your council office and provide that address and exact information. And the same goes for the property or properties you mentioned just now that are in the 13th district. Please make sure that my office is aware of those addresses so that we can mitigate the issues that you've witnessed. Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 4200. Please press star 6 to unmute. Caller with the phone number ending in 4200. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you'd like to speak on.
Hello, my name is Maria Kendall, and I'm just a general comment.
Okay, 1 minute, Maria.
Okay. I became a homeowner in Echo Park on Kensington Road about 6 years ago. I'm also a member of the Friends of Echo Park Lake. I have 2 children who are distance learning right now. One's in 1st grade, one's in 3rd grade. And my general comment starts with, during the daylight hours, there are homeless people wandering our street, looking on neighbors' premises for valuables. And a couple of months ago, I was walking my son home from Sister Hermosa, which we were so excited that there's a park, another park in our neighborhood that we could walk to. And so I walked home, and as we were passing Temple and Edgware, a homeless man, deranged, quite young, came up to me asking me for 35 cents. And of course, I didn't have any money, so I said no. And then he started harassing me and my son sexually and asking my son to show him his dick. And to me, this is a conversation I never wanted to have with my child. And of course, my son doesn't even know what those words mean. He's 8 years old. But the fact that this is happening in my neighborhood, the place where I chose to purchase a house, is just insane. And I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not the only person this is happening to, but I feel like this story needs to be told. And that, as elected officials, we need to know what's happening to, our youth. And this wasn't even at Echo Park. This was 4 blocks away, but this is happening. It's growing and growing and growing, and it has to be stopped. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm very sorry to hear about the incident with your child and yourself. Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 1763. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Amados-Sprague, and I want to speak on item number 5.
Okay. You have 1 minute, Rebecca.
Great. So I'm the shelter program manager, housing program manager at Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking, otherwise known as Katz. And I'm speaking today on behalf of the survivors of Katz, who we serve are receiving housing through Project Safe Haven. Traffickers commonly exploit sex and labor trafficking victims by providing access to shelter and basic necessities and making victims feel like they have nowhere to turn but the trafficker for support. Further, traffickers prey on vulnerable populations such as homeless, those fleeing abusive relationships, and immigrants through recruitment into what seems like legitimate employment and ends up being sex or labor trafficking. Due to COVID, California's astronomical unemployment rates make those seeking work even more vulnerable to trafficking. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the only additional support provided to human trafficking survivors in Los Angeles was through Project Safe Haven. Project Safe Haven has doubled the shelter's capacity for survivors and has helped nearly 2,000 Angelenos live safer at home without fear of violence. Unfortunately, without additional funding, the new year will force survivors that are not yet connected to permanent housing to face another choice: fall into homelessness or go back to human trafficking.
Thank you. And that
At
has.
Katz,
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 8255. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Yes, my name is Farmers, and I'd like to speak on items 4, 6, and general public comment.
Okay, you have 2 minutes for the items and 1 minute for general. Please begin.
Thank you. I'd like to first address the proposal by Councilmember Price to have congregate shelter in the LA Convention Center. While I believe that it is past urgent to provide housing and shelter for people who are homeless, I am deeply concerned that the convention center is not an appropriate location for this purpose. Congregate living facilities have shown in San Diego, San Francisco, and other cities to be highly susceptible to rapid spread of COVID and other diseases. Instead, we need to look at small facilities and permanent housing for homeless people. In the meantime, we should make sure that what little possessions homeless people have is not being thrown in the trash through sweeps. I also want to address the comments about Echo Park Lake. I'm really shocked that some people are saying that the victims of the shooting should be the ones who are punished by being forced to leave what
little place they have where they can sleep, whether it's a tent or whether it is some other form in the Echo Park homeless community. I think it's important that people have an option that's better than a tent, that's better than a sleeping bag, and we need to make that a priority. What we can do is make sure that many of these motels and hotels that are running empty are getting paid by the city and by CARES Act money to house homeless people. That needs to happen. If hotels aren't cooperating, we need to use the city's eminent domain power and police power to be able to use those facilities during this emergency. Finally, I hear the concerns that people have about mentally ill people, but a lot of homeless people are not mentally ill. They're not on drugs. They may have lost their job. They may have been evicted. They may have been survivors of domestic violence. We need to keep in mind that there are some people who need those types of services for mental health. Most are not, and they are not people that are coming from other places. Many of them are people who were born and raised in Los Angeles. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of our fellow Angelenos and not treating them as people who need to be shunted off to some not yet identified location. They are members of our community.
Appreciate that. That's been your 3 minutes, and we thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 0408. Please press *6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Yes, my name is Belinda, and I wish to speak on items number 4, number 6, and general.
Okay, that's 1 minute for each item, including general.
Yes, thank you. So my concern with the convention center temporary housing is that temporary housing is, as it says, temporary. So my concern is what happens after these shelters shut down. And I want to actually speak on that because as a resident of the San Fernando Valley living in Granada Hills, I witnessed the Pettit Park as a temporary housing during COVID. And, you know, as soon as that shut down, there's now all these homeless living in the streets, specifically on that intersection of Balboa and Devonshire, which I've heard a lot of residents speak on that. There's been crime happening in that shopping center. And with the crime happening in the shopping centers throughout the valley, there's a lot of small businesses and, you know, large businesses alike being shut down because they can no longer function, given that there's homeless encampments on the sidewalks, blocking pedestrian walkways, throwing stuff at cars, and, you know, residents living in the community can no longer access these shopping centers, and it's becoming a problem for businesses. I see that as businesses have these issues, a lot of them are being forced to shut down, and with businesses being shut down, there's a lot of people that are being left without a job, and this does lead to homelessness. As well as, I think that the foster care system needs to be addressed because there's a lot of homeless that stem from being foster children as youth, and they need to get that help before it even becomes a problem and they end up in the streets and they end up committing crime and using drugs and having a drug addiction. So I think that needs to get addressed to solve the problem instead of using temporary housing as a way to fix the situation right now, but it doesn't bring long-term, solve the problems. So I think it's very important to first assess why the homeless are in the streets, and then giving them that rehabilitation and providing them the resources they need to go back into the workforce and go back stronger so that they are able to make a living and be able to afford rent. So that's my view on this topic. I yield the rest.
Well, thank you. We thank you for your comments. Thanks for calling in. Ready for the next caller.
Caller with the phone number ending in 1487. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is David Niwedi, and I'd like to comment on 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Okay, you have 2 minutes for those agenda items.
Great, thank you. So obviously we've heard all the issues and incidents. I don't think there's a shortage of incidents with homeless people and transients, drug addicts. I believe that simply moving these people around, which has been addressed, is only going to further enable drug use and addiction, which is one of the root causes of this problem. And it's not going to end until somebody at the government level starts holding people personally accountable. Individual accountability is the answer. It is not the problems of the productive working citizens who own homes in the neighborhoods to be sheltering these people who have made choices that have ended them up where they are in their life. Continuing to move people around, especially to places like the zoo, the airport, and the convention center, is totally absurd. So we're moving them from our neighborhoods to other public places that all citizens should have access to. It should not be the onus of this should not be placed on the citizens who are trying to go about their day-to-day lives to protect and shelter these individuals. These individuals are not nice people. They need to be stopped. They need to be held accountable for their actions. I don't care if they need to go figure out where they're going to live, just like I have to figure out where I'm going to live. I've been sober for 4 years. If I can get sober, then these people can do it. And it is not the place of the government to be sheltering or helping these individuals, which will only further enable drug use and homelessness. We should start looking at the root causes of these issues and not playing musical chairs. Thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. And again, I do hope that you'll listen in on the rest of this hearing today. Thanks for calling in. We're ready for the next caller.
Caller with the phone number ending in 8505. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Mary Maggiadis. I would like to speak on item number 6.
Okay, 1 minute for you. Please begin.
I want to specifically speak on behalf of commercial landlords in the 12th district who are being negatively affected by the encampments and RVs that have taken over the public sidewalks. I work at Untitled Chapter, and we own the 260,000 square foot office high-rise in Chatsworth, Oakdale and Prairie. And our tenants are scared to walk to the building, walk to their cars. We have large tenants, including North LA County Regional Center, who leases 100,000 square feet in our building, and Chase. So just want to make our voice heard as well, because it's impacting commercial landlords negatively. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 0201. Please press star 6 to unmute.
Yes, thank you.
Your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Thank you. This is Jeff calling on behalf of Friends of Echo Park Lake, and I would like to speak on item 6 and general comment.
Okay, Jeff, you have 1 minute for each item. Please begin.
Thank you. I want to say I appreciate all the comments from the callers that talk about the shortfalls of temporary shelter and moving the homeless around. They all make excellent points. I want to say that Echo Park has become a unique situation in that it is no longer strictly about vulnerable homeless individuals, although there are a great number of those in the park still. This park has now become an organized crime zone with 3 shootings occurring in the same location. There are those of us that live literally 10 to 12 yards away from where these incidents occurred. It is right outside our front doors, right outside our windows. This is no longer about protecting homeless rights to live in the park. This is about a crime zone. There is organized crime and gang activity documented by the LAPD in this park. There's evidence that a large number of these parks or these tents are not even occupied at night, indicating that they are used for other purposes. And moving the people living in the park out of that area by whatever means is necessary for the safety of the neighborhood. There are stray bullets flying around our windows. I cannot open my blinds. They are closed 24/7 for fear I could be targeted by stray bullet or intentional shooting. We need to clear that park out by whatever means necessary, and this is not to negate any of the other comments about the welfare of the homeless. This is about saving the neighborhood and reducing the risk of people getting shot who live and work in that area. Thank you for listening, and I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 1336. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Yes, hi, my name is Michelle, and just speaking to item 6.
All right, you have item 6.
Okay, thanks. I'm a 25-year Echo Park resident. Third generation Angelino, and just want to reiterate that the situation at the lake has become untenable. You, Mitchell Farrell, worked hard to make it a place that the whole neighborhood could enjoy, and it's no longer that. It's a place I avoid. And I yield the rest of my time, just echoing what other comments from those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 5900. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Holly, and I'd like to speak on number 6.
Holly, you have 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. I just would also like to repeat what so many have said about the people experiencing homelessness and the need for better outreach and help for all of them. I have children and pets, and it feels unsafe in my neighborhood. I live in Silver Lake near the Sunset and Myra Bridge, and there's a lot of homeless under the bridge, and they've come onto our little side street of just homes. And that's all. I will listen to the rest of the thing here, and I yield the rest of my time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 2380. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
My name is Monica, and I have a general comment in item 6 also. I'm also a resident of Silver Lake, and have put up with the encampments under the bridge for a very, very long time, which I'm torn on. But now it's starting to come up the street on Lexington, which is incredibly intrusive. I feel bad for these people, I really do, but for those of us who have been very responsible in our lives, not that they haven't, and I understand it's circumstantial, this is just taking over. We have children on this block. We have pets. I can't walk anymore. And we need to help them. So, and moving them to the zoo, I think is just absurd. So that's it. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 3983. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hello, this is Dr. Melissa King, and I'd like to speak on item 5 in general public comment, please.
Okay, doctor, that's 1 minute for each item.
Oh, good morning, council members. I'm the principal of People's Health Solutions, and I'm a resident of South Los Angeles. And as a social and behavioral scientist, I have spent the past 6 months doing community-based research on experiences of intimate partner violence and homelessness in Los Angeles. And our primary finding was the value of Project Safe Haven in keeping survivors safe and housed. And for that reason, I'm calling to ask you to consider allocating funding to extend this important program. The social isolation, economic challenges, and stay-at-home orders that have come along with COVID-19 have contributed to conditions where domestic violence is more likely to occur and where it's harder to flee to a safe place. Our city's DV shelters are at capacity. The usual outlets that people have for a spare room are not available, and unemployment means that the rainy day funds survivors have to flee home have dried up. Extending Project Safe Haven is helping fill a critical resource gap. And as general public comment, I wanted to speak from the survivor perspective. Project Safe Haven provided hope to nearly 2,000 survivors by allowing them to make the choice to leave an unhealthy situation and go to a safe place where they can socially distance and receive the support they need to get back on their feet. Without it, the alternative for some of the survivors I spoke to was to make the choice between further emotional or physical abuse or fleeing to the streets. No one who has already survived one of the hardest things a human being can go through deserves to make that choice. And being a survivor of domestic violence myself, I know that no one ever expects to have to ask for that help. I believe that allocating funding toward this program is the right thing, not only from a cost-benefit perspective, but also from a human rights perspective, providing sanctuary at a very sensitive time. I would infer that benefits such as health, safety, and job stability would outweigh the costs of the program, and further research could validate this. In the meantime, funding Project Safe Haven is...
That has been a little over your 2 minutes. So we thank you for calling in, and we hear you. And we'll go with the next caller. Before we do, we're a little over an hour already, but I'll go till 10:15 because so many people have called in. So we'll be able to take a few more.
Caller with the phone number ending in 3028. Please press star 6 to unmute. Caller with the phone number ending in 3028. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hello, my name is Brady. I would like to speak on item 6, homelessness and poverty.
Yes, Brady, that's 1 minute that you have for that item.
Okay, thanks. I work and reside in Oxnard, and unfortunately, homeless camps have been affecting our local businesses. We have had homeless coming to our properties and entering our trash enclosures, leaving their cars and trash behind. We have now purchased locks and hired night patrol watch, but this is not fixing the issue. We ask that the City Council comes up with a plan to end camps from forming in our businesses. Thanks, that's all.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 5736. Please press star 6 to unmute.
Hey.
Name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is Riley Montgomery. I'd like to speak on item number 6 and a public comment as well.
You have 1 minute, Joy.
Okay. So I'm the author of the petition which I created to save Echo Park Lake to restore it to its original condition. I'm working with the Friends of Echo Park Lake, which is a brand new organization to restore the lake. Just echoing what everyone said, we need to fix this situation. I just watched the Instagram video of Devon Brown, the former male model who is one of the main homeless activists at Echo Park Lake. He just posted an Instagram video of him bleeding out of his leg because he was just shot by someone. We're seeing an unprecedented situation where people in Echo Park don't even feel like they can go outside anymore. I'm working on a documentary about Echo Park Lake, so I talked to some of the Rec and Park employees that work at the lake, and I asked them, how many people do you think living at Echo Park Lake are from Echo Park that were evicted? And he told me, and this is an exact quote, I have it on video, 80% have come from other places, like Kansas, other states. And he's telling me that this has just become a dumping ground for everyone who feels like they can live in an area and not have to pay rent. And it's unbelievable to me that we're tolerating this. I think that the main thing we need to focus on is housing everyone at the lake, creating fair housing that works. And I support Mitchell Farrell 100%. I want his ideas to succeed, and I understand he has his hands tied because this is kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. But we want to know what we can do to help. We want to know how we can fix this situation because the lake in its current state is completely unsustainable. I mean, we're having bullets flying around like crazy. We're having shootings. We're having all sorts of horrible things, and the dumping of public waste and everything else has just been terrible. I've talked to so many people interviewing them for my documentary, and we're seeing people that are just saying, yeah, this used to be the crown jewel of Echo Park, and now I don't even go anywhere near there. It's terrible, and it's a shame, and shouldn't be allowed to continue like this. We absolutely need to house the people at the lake, and we need to restore the lake to its original condition. When we, the taxpayers, paid $49 million to restore it to how it should have been. We need to restore it to that original condition, and we need to provide housing for the unhoused. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, and I am back. I somehow inadvertently was kicked out of the meeting, so we have time for one more caller.
Caller with the phone number ending in 7277. Please press star 6 to unmute. State your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi there, this is Jed Perry with Street Watch LA. I'd like to speak on item 6 and public comment.
Okay, you have 1 minute for each.
Hi there, yeah, I do want to, I have a lot to say about what the folks have been commenting on here. Folks who don't do any outreach to Echo Park Lake, who actually talk to the individuals living there, like Riley Montgomery, who just spoke, who, FYI, showed up to my home to threaten me recently, blaming me for homelessness and the conditions at the lake. Me, a volunteer organizer who is there almost on a daily basis, helping people charge their phones. I understand and agree the conditions are not good, and people need housing and health care. That is the focus. And when I say housing, it's not temporary shelter, Mr. O'Farrell. There's a reason why Devon Brown went and did that action at the Ritz, because the Ritz shares a building with the Marriott Hotel, which has 900 vacant rooms right now, just a stone's throw from Skid Row, amongst many other vacant hotels across the city that y'all need to be commandeering now. You need to be, bitch, you got motels that are empty in your own district. You're not that far from Echo Park Lake. You don't need to build a shelter. There's rooms right there. So that should be the focus. And, it's really sad that folks are commenting on what's happening at the lake, speculating, suggesting that people at the lake are the ones doing the shooting. No, I can tell you right now, the folks who are living at the lake are the ones being shot at by housed people. That's a fact. And so let's just be clear here. And let's also make sure that when folks target me like they're going to continue to from the quote-unquote Friends of Echo Park Lake, led by Riley Montgomery, who showed up to my house and said, "We all have your address, Jed, and we're going to, this is the beginning," like a crazy creep. I didn't call the cops on him. I tried to reason with him. And he says, by saying, yes, housing is the answer. But apparently they're hell-bent on just removing people from the lake, from removing people from public space. They say housing. I don't know if they mean shelter, if that's acceptable to them. Riley said, we wouldn't mind if they just lived on the sidewalks outside the lake. He told me. So Riley actually doesn't care about housing. He wants people to live on the sidewalks away from Echo Park Lake is what he told me they would prefer. And we just need to focus on, as I said, house keys, not handcuffs. That has always been what Street Watch LA has stood for, is getting people housing and healthcare resources they need. I myself have spent my own money getting people into motel rooms from the lake. I have had people stay in my home before who are homeless. Mitch, someone got evicted in your district.
Has been your 2 minutes. Thank you for calling in. Thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We went an hour and 10 minutes, and I appreciate everyone's patience and all those who called in. That does complete our public and agenda item comment for the day. And colleagues, we were joined by David Rue at the very beginning of this public comment. So thank you, Mr. Rue. And unless there's an objection from my colleagues, I'd like to move items 1 through 4 on consent. And please note that for item 3, we're approving the revised CAO report dated November the 19th. Seeing as there are no objections, Mr. Villanueva, please call the roll.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Councilmember Mitchell Farrell.
Aye.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Bonin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson. Councilmember David Rue.
Aye.
All the items passed, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So now I would like to move to item 6. I want to be clear that today this item is for discussion with no action, but I want to thank Ms. Rodriguez for bringing this forward, and you're going to hear from her in just a moment about her successful work on a particular challenging issue in the 7th Council District. So I want to thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Our homelessness crisis is a humanitarian crisis that affects every corner of our city, as you just heard from most of the callers who are experiencing it, and must be dealt with compassionately and thoughtfully with housing as our main priority. My constituency is asking for more or less to keep our sidewalks clean, have a compassionate, humane approach in dealing with this super complex issue, this humanitarian crisis. We have the moral imperative. We have to keep our public rights of way free and clear of contamination and some of the items that put the general public at high risk, as well as those experiencing homelessness. And these hygienic services and case management services that are being offered to our unhoused neighbors constantly with various outreach efforts, various Care Plus cleaning activities, where we've been offering showers and COVID testing and case management, and that will all continue. Today we have LA Sanitation, LASA, and LA Family Housing present. And before I hand it over to the departments, I'd like to go ahead and hand this over to Ms. Rodriguez on this very important item.
Thank you, Mr. O'Farrell and colleagues. The item before us is a motion that I introduced to memorialize a successful housing operation that took place in my district in April at a large and frankly a historic encampment located at the intersection of Paxton and Bradley Avenue in Pacoima. You all have heard me talk about this before because I think it's important not only just to reflect on the outcomes, but how we actually achieved them. We were able to successfully house 67 individuals, which represents 100% of those that have been encamped at this large underpass encampment in my district. But what I hope we could derive from this effort, and one of the things that we've continued to discuss on the council, is how we can memorialize consistent process that will help us achieve more success citywide. And I wanted to bring this forward for discussion, and I know as we are embarking on a variety of different conversations, for me, it was important to share how we got there as part of how we could, I hope, potentially embrace this as a model of how we could also take this citywide. What many people don't realize is the resources that are, the resources are different by area, but how each of the bodies, how each of the outreach efforts are conducted have had a variety of approaches throughout the city. And, what we did here and what, the effort that was involved in this particular location is that we coordinated on a client basis, with each client qualifying for a variety of resources, and it depends on what the circumstances are of the individuals at those encampments. And so aligning to that is really important, and it does take, of course, as you all know, it takes time for us in the process of marrying the right resources and aligning it to those individuals so that we can meet folks where they are. With the funding assistance that we secured from Supervisor Sheila Kuehl, the Paxton and Bradley pilot offered intensive case management and dedicated housing funding for the residents of this specific encampment. My office led the coordination of the city services for the site responsive to the outreach recommendations, as well as logistical coordination with other agencies that had jurisdiction, namely Caltrans. The plan was to move groups out of the encampment and into housing in sections as the resources became available for these individuals. However, the silver lining, and I've said this many times, the silver lining that came as a result of the pandemic was Project Room Keep, which availed us motel rooms for homeless individuals vulnerable to COVID-19. And so as a result of that, it enabled us to do a far greater outreach effort and basically, fulfill the needs of all of these individuals immediately. Because we also know that with large-scale encampments, the community effect of trying to help provide housing for everyone there becomes more difficult depending on the circumstances of what is available at that time. And so Project Room Keep helps us provide shelter for everyone at that encampment. 67 individuals, all housed, all in the same week, and that to me was one of the biggest and best successes that we've had thus far with any encampment, frankly, on record. That program enabled us to also plan a large-scale housing operation at once, which entailed outreach, engagement to facilitate, again, the individuals being housed, but more importantly, how we also brought sanitation into this conversation that helped to clear the encampment and manage all the personal property associated with those individuals. And so, why this conversation is so important at this time? This process is important and timely as we review new resources, new beds coming online via the county and the city agreement that we have pending as a result of the conversations that we're having with Judge Carter, and the same window of opportunity that Project Room Keep afforded us. So I know these protocols have already influenced successful housing operations in other districts. My staff has been involved, and I want to thank Paula from my staff. We all know Paula. She is my personal czar and has been working on these policy issues and has done a really great job. And I'm proud of the work that we continue to memorialize here. But she has lent the experience and insight to, I know my colleagues in CD3 and also in Mr. Bonner's district and they plan for operations, for example. And therefore, we should examine our process at Paxton and Bradley and take the lessons learned and best practices to consider them for citywide adoption. And so, Mr. Chair, I want to take a moment to also thank the individuals that were instrumental in helping us really memorialize the work here, but more importantly, to to be part of how we reflect on aligning all the pieces and coordinating them at the right moment. And I want to also recognize that it did not involve the LAPD. This was, we did not have LAPD as part of this process. We didn't need it because we had the outreach and the services all to support a successful operation here. But it was accomplished with the participation of some very important partners, and I want to recognize them before we turn it over to Sanitation and LASA. And I want to thank Victor from LASA. I want to thank Aylin from LA Family Housing, who's been outstanding in helping to get all the documentation. I know Pepe is on, Howard, Sarah Bell, Domingo from Sanitation. Even at one point when we were having some struggle, I called Enrique Zaldivar. He came out, and we really worked together as a team to help accomplish this, and I want to thank them for that. But there's been a lot of work in documenting so that we can be consistent in how we approach these encampments with a housing first operation and commitment. And I know that's something that we all want to achieve here. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn it back over to you so that we can have LA Sanitation take us off.
So, yes, Sanitation, and if you could please assemble the panel. And Ms. Rodriguez, I'm going to invite you to begin with questions once the report is presented.
Sure. And actually, I'm going to correct myself. LASA will start with the overview. My apologies. So, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rodriguez, Council Members Bonin, Rue, and O'Farrell for the opportunity to discuss the Paxton Bradley pilot this morning. My name is Victor Hinderleiter. I'm the Interim Director for LASA's Access and Engagement Department, and really wanted to talk today about how to scale and memorialize the collaborative workflow and communication process for addressing personal property as folks moved into housing from that large encampment. Especially in light of limited storage options in many of our interim and even some of our permanent housing options, I think it's really important that we strengthen that collaboration and that communication. As we are getting ready for additional homelessness roadmap resources to come online, we're anticipating that we'll have additional opportunities to move large groups of individuals from the streets, from encampments, into interim and permanent housing, and really want to look at how can we replicate those successes that we saw at Paxton and Bradley. I'd like to suggest or affirm that some of the keys to success include having that available housing available for the residents of those encampments, having appropriate timelines to conduct this work, having sufficient additional resources needed to make this type of success possible, and really centering client discretion and client choice. So with that said, and before I go into the details of our recommendations to report back to the motion, I wanted to pass the floor to Aylin Gausvik, the Senior Director of Engagement at LA Family Housing, whose leadership really made this effort possible. So Aylin, take it away.
Thanks, Victor. I love talking about Paxton Bradley. It's one of my favorite topics ever. And I really just want to thank Monica Rodriguez for, one, that amazing kind of intro and really bringing in that housing first aspect to what we're doing here. I think it's really important that we keep talking about housing as the need here and the other needs that surround addressing getting to housing, like sanitation, like the city services that we need to offer people just to get there. I'm really happy that we're moving in a housing first direction. And I think that one of the things, if I could give one takeaway from what was successful about what we did, or why, in my opinion, it was successful, is we led with the human need of housing, and we led with knowing people. It was people living there, and people who didn't want to be on the street, and people who had had other options that were just never going to meet their needs presented to them, and then maybe not even succeed. A lot of distrust, a lot of just experience with systems that couldn't meet needs. And it was slow. I think what a lot of people don't realize is we were engaged actively for 10 months prior to the pandemic starting. And we were engaged for almost 2 years in other ways with our outreach teams as we started building up outreach in the service area. So it was a long-term engagement. And I think the biggest learning for me is when there's a resource behind it, when you really put the resource there first rather than engage the person, then find the resource, it allows engagement to go faster. And Project Room Key showed me a lot about what that really means when the resource is actually actively open and what we can do when we're not just building up to opening day, but we're using those first few weeks of a resource being open to target some of our tougher people who maybe have had really, really hard experiences in the past. We did a lot of stuff that the little things really took an impact. We put in porta potties, and now I know porta potties are in a lot of the different spaces, which is great, but we did something really interesting with those where we would host town halls with all of the community members under the bridge. And I basically said, like, I've got these porta potties and I don't know how many companies I'm going to go through before the end of this project. But basically, if you lose these, like if you abuse these porta potties, I can't help you get more. Because if a company won't rent to me, I can't do anything. And so I gave a lot of power and responsibility back to people to say, like, this is a resource for you, but if you don't use it, I can't help. And then when we really started collaborating with Caltrans, with Sanitation to offer some of the city services, the regular trash pickup was something that the residents themselves were asking for. So a big kind of framework of what we were doing was involving the residents under the bridge in the decision making. How can we bring them to the table to tell them what we're proposing, ask them if that works, ask for solutions that they want, and garbage pickup and regular consistent city services was something they felt would be really helpful. And they took the efforts to make sure their stuff was in the trash bins when trash pickup was coming. They were active participants in it. And then we did some larger cleanups that I know Sanitation will talk about a bit, that I think we involved the residents in the process. We had incentives to be cleaning up their own space. We had incentives to be cleaning up the whole space. And we started to see collaboration with people actually taking care of their space, knowing that that was a community need. They also didn't want to live in a space that was full of garbage and hazardous to people. So I think that the residents under the bridge and those around them as a community all had kind of the same needs. And we were able to find this really great collaboration between our outreach teams, the city, and the state to start meeting some of those needs. At the end of the day, the reason I think that people came with us when Project Room Key opened, and I remember someone, Sheila Kuehl's office asked me, if they have a Project Room Key, do you think a lot of them will go? And I was like, yeah, definitely, I think a lot will go. And then I had about 35 names. And so lesson number one, when you're planning to do something like this, double how many people you think you're going to have to serve, and then add in another kind of amount of people that are going to show up and you need to find other options for. They might not need the service that is Project Room Key or Project Home Key, but more people will come than you could possibly imagine. And that's a good thing. The more people showing up when we're putting in these resources just means that they want it. It means that they don't want to stay on the street. They're looking for help. They're looking to come to us and find a way out of this. So it is a good thing when you start to see a lot of people come to the resource. And then it's about knowing people. I knew their names. It was a matriarch community there. There was 3 kind of major groupings, and they were led by matriarchs who were strong women. And when I knew their names on that day, that's who was the key to getting other people to come with us, the people who might not trust us. When I could go to the community leaders who are there taking care of their own community, and I can make sure that like we have an understanding, I can then rely on them to help me with other community members who maybe aren't going to have that relationship with me or with whoever the outreach worker is. So I think really looking at who are the community caregivers, who are the people who aren't as acute and you might not see them, they might not get prioritized for the housing resource, and that's where we fail. When we see the caregiver not get any service, but the person who's being cared for get it, the person being cared for will go back to their caregiver. And so I think a big learning for us is when we approach this as a community, we need to start to find resources for everyone that we can kind of match to the right person, but we can't leave behind the people who are already there doing a lot of the work that theoretically we are looking for people to pay to do that, and there's already people doing it in a more natural way. So for me, that's really what it all came down to, was community, knowing people, giving them the power to have a say in this and making sure they were informed. It wasn't just, hey, there's a resource coming online, prepare yourself. They knew that we were talking with city council. They knew we were talking with the state. I would update them when we had meetings, and even if not everyone could grasp it, there was people there who could, and they appreciated being involved in the process and having a voice. Yeah, I think if I could wrap it up any one way, it was about empowerment and community. And I am appreciative that we're trying to learn from it and see how we can help other communities this way.
So just to go back to some of the considerations and recommended protocols from LASA's report back to the motion, as Aylin mentioned, that regular sanitation service is really important just to maintain the cleanliness and pick up the extra trash and debris at the encampments. But then especially as we know that these housing resources are coming online and people will be moving indoors, as much as possible making dumpsters or other garbage bins available for that community to be able to dispose of their own trash, especially as considering limited storage options at interim and some permanent housing. Our outreach workers have a lot of straightforward discussions with our participants about what they want to take with them and what their plan is for any remaining belongings that they're unable to take with them. And being able to dispose of those at their own time is very important. And when that's not available, working very closely and communicating these established protocols with our partners at Sanitation that Howard and Sanitation will be speaking about shortly, so that the outreach workers, as well as the participants, as well as the sanitation workers, all have a clear and consistent understanding as far as what belongings individuals will be taking with them as they're moving into their housing, and then what belongings sanitation can take and dispose of that participants don't plan on taking with them. As we're moving into these roadmap resources, LASA has committed to providing regular monthly metrics to the city on each of the priority locations that are being identified to target these resources for. So that will include unduplicated numbers of participants served at the priority encampments, participants engaged, so really have true robust housing plans at each of the priority encampments, the number of services provided and referrals made, the number of successful housing placements that we're able to achieve, and the number of permanent housing matches from those priority encampments, as well as working very closely with sanitation to provide them with the information that they need so that they can then go and pick up any belongings that are not able to go with participants as they're going into their housing. So with that, I'll conclude LASA's portion of the report.
Thank you. Monica, would you like to hear from Sanitation now?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair, Council members. On behalf of Sanitation, my name is Jose Garcia, Pepe. We're here to discuss the operation that happened or the efforts that took place at Paxton and Bradley. You know, Sanitation is always willing to extend resources or be a great partner in whatever vision is out there. And I think this is a good example of where the motion introduced by Council Member Rodriguez regarding this effort right here, from the vision to applying all the resources up to the last stone that was set. So a special thanks for on our side to Sarah Bell for being the tether between your vision and our resources, and working with LASA. In any case, we're always here to help whenever you need us. So I'll turn it over to Chief Wong, who will give you some details of the operation and how it took place, and then we'll go from there.
That's the best way to build stuff. Thank you, Pepe. Good morning, council members and members on the call. My name is Howard Wong. I am the Chief Environmental Inspector for LE Sanitation Livability Division. I also have on the call with me Division Manager Gabriel Miranda and Assistant Division Manager Domingo Roscoe, who is joining me on the call. I wanted to provide a summary of sanitation services and operations that was provided during the pilot program at Bradley and Paxton. The pilot program followed existing protocols and procedures established by LA Sanitation under 5611. But beginning months prior to the pilot program, Sanitation has responded to service requests at the Bradley and Patterson locations on numerous occasions regarding public health and safety complaints, which may have included homeless encampments. Sanitation's responses include providing regular trash service through wire baskets at the location that was serviced Monday through Friday, weekly. In addition, our mobile hygiene unit program provided 129 guests with showers at Bradley and Paxton beginning in October of 2019. The MHU program mainly focuses on locations where people are experiencing homelessness, which have little to no access to sanitary showers or restroom services. Working in partnership with 5 Keys and Project and Urban Alchemy, LA Sanitation is able to bring these critical services to those in need. Our MHU program has quickly evolved into LA Sanitation's foundation of services-led approach to providing services. Additionally, prior to the pilot program, we also responded to immediate removal of any health and safety hazards at the location. Working with the council district representatives, our care team responded there occasionally, typically 1 to 2 days a week prior to March 2020 and several days during the week after March 2020 due to the pandemic. Regarding the pilot program, Sanitation's pilot program began working with the service provider approximately 4 days out prior to the final move-out date and after housing was provided. Our care team focused on field operations, which included working with the unsheltered individuals to offer voluntary disposal of trash and health hazards and or unwanted personal property. Our teams provided trash bags and personal property storage bags in preparation of the final move-out date. The voluntary disposal was to reduce the amount of trash prior to the move-out date. An example of this service would have been at one location, which we identify an individual experiencing homelessness. The individual voluntary disposed of approximately 1,000 pounds of material, solid debris, 40 pounds of biological human waste, 35 pounds of hazardous waste, including flammable combustible materials, and approximately 20 syringes and or drug paraphernalia at the location. In addition, several days prior to the move-out date, LA Sanitation was working with LA Family Housing to identify and map out each of the locations on the street. We identified 3 locations with names and individuals who were present and approximately 23 locations that were unknown. These are the locations that could have been placed into shelter and or have moved on from the location. Approximately 1 day, 24 hours prior to the move-out date, Sanitation provided postal notification and additional outreach were provided with verbal notification with any individuals who were there. On the move-out date, it's a summary was provided. I can provide a summary regarding those services. During the move-out date, additional outreach time was given to individuals to gather their personal property and belongings. The team systematically processed 26 encampments identified by either LA Family Housing and or the LASA representatives, working closely with the unsheltered individuals. The process included attended and or unattended locations. Personal property was screened for health hazards. It was documented and disposed of accordingly. Uncontaminated personal property were bag tagged and stored. LA San provided personal property retrieval information to LA Family Housing just in case any individuals would like to claim their personal property at a later date. Some metrics from our cleanup operation that occurred on the final move-out date was 46 bags of personal property that was identified, cleaned, bagged, tagged, and stored for 90 days of storage. Close to 15 tons of solid waste were removed. 20 pounds of human waste was found, even though there was a portable restroom located near the location. 35 pounds of hazardous waste, including combustibles, ignitables such as propane, oils, gasoline was found at the location. 60 items of sharps, syringes, drug paraphernalia was collected, and approximately 20 locations with evidence of rodents and parasites was found in the cleanup area. We did encounter one animal. It was a rooster. We referred to the animal services, and it was dealt with accordingly. The contaminated areas were sanitized, which included the sidewalk, street, curb gutter, etc. Some of the post-summary move-outs, what worked for us was a coordination and notification between LA Sanitation and LA Family Housing regarding personal property that was stored from the move-out date. We kept track of this property as far as the 90-day storage was concerned. We reached out to LA Family Housing. They requested an extension of personal property storage for additional 2 weeks. We reached out to our service provider, Chrysalis, who maintains the storage facilities, and extension was granted. Some of the challenges and lessons learned from us was LA Sanitation was not asked to participate in the move-out day from the very beginning, and which created some logistical challenges that could have been worked out with clients who would like to voluntarily dispose of their materials. We provided a review recommendation workflow as described in a report, which the committee has had. And I can open up to some specific questions and or to the rest of our team if there's any additional information or questions you'd like to be answered.
Ms. Rodriguez, would you like to take it away to open the question?
Sorry, I was trying to get to my mute button here. Thank you so much, Howard. And I actually want to correct Howard. We did engage sanitation. We just asked that they not go on that first day because we didn't want to create any concern amongst those that were departing. But I think that was one of the lessons learned, was that had you been able to be there the first day, I think perhaps Aylin, you might be able to provide some insight on this. One of the lessons learned was that it perhaps would have been better to have sanitation participate on that first day. Would you like to insight, Aylin?
Yeah, we were just having a conversation yesterday about how I will never again get stuck having to decide whose stuff is staying or going. Once they're all in PRK, I went and talked to them, like, let's go and get rid of your stuff. They're like, you're fine, you can do it, I trust you. I don't want to do it again. So definitely would want to have sanitation there. I think, if we can take what we learned from the other cleanup days where sanitation was pulled a little bit, people up, like they weren't there first early in the morning. I think there's a balancing act between having them there that day. I think that's important. People should have the choice to get rid of their stuff as they go. That's a really nice, clean way to wrap that up, to help people feel ownership over it. There's going to be people who don't want to do that, and that's where we need to have other solutions. But I think having them there, not so early in the morning that it wakes people up to sanitation, but it's there as they're actually departing, and it's kind of happening later in the day, I think would be a really good compromise. And if we're well prepared and we're, sanitation
Sylvia says no. Excuse me, Aylin, could you stop for just a second? Sorry to interrupt, but anyone who is not speaking, who's on this Zoom call, Pepe, you might not be on mute. I'm going to ask everyone to mute if you're not speaking so we can really hear more clearly the person who is speaking. Sorry to interrupt, Aylin. Please go ahead.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I think just having, when people know, like I saw this a lot actually in Council District 3 when we were working through a little bit of the same process. The sanitation workers there through the care model they knew the people that they were meeting on the street. It wasn't new faces. And so sanitation wasn't a fear factor there. Like they weren't afraid of sanitation. So I think there's a lot of ways that you can approach this that removes that worry of it scaring people away from leaving. So I definitely think, I think there's a lot that we can do.
Thank you. And then Aylin, I just wanted to kind of underscore one of the things that you mentioned, because I think it's important for everyone to understand. You know, when we talk about building the trust, right, and how we engender the trust with those that are in camps that help facilitate greater ease in having folks leave the encampment to actually go into housing. But that occurred as a result of you being the primary contact and the lead in the outreach. And I want to underscore that, colleagues, because what I provided Judge Carter through our engaged conversations every time that we've met, I actually developed a matrix that would, you know, I know many of us are frustrated oftentimes about the accountability and making sure that we have consistent outreach efforts. I think it's important to assign a lead agency and a lead point of contact by the encampments that we're approaching. Because in order for us to help assure the consistency in the application, it requires that development of trust. And I know, Aylin, you were instrumental in doing that. I don't know if you want to offer any additional insight into that, but I think it's really important because, you know, we need both. We need accountability in this process, and we need to know that, you know, person A is going to be assigned to encampment located at, you know, Paxton and Bradley or what, you know, under the 101 overpass, whatever the locations are, we have to have that assigned accountability of an outreach lead. So, Aylin, would you mind maybe sharing some of that?
Yeah, as we've kind of done this a few times now, one thing that we did is we requested, when someone's coming to us saying we want to work with this encampment, we want a little bit of time to do some assessment and assign that person, right? I need to know where the encampment is, who are the outreach workers that have been the most involved, who's the strongest on our team, is it our team, right? Like maybe it's not our team that has the best relationship. I think when you assign a lead, that's where the role of really consultation and a little bit of assessment of the space and the resources is important, so that you don't just assign a person who seems like the natural fit. It should be the person who's got the best relationship with the encampment. And then the support needs to go behind them. So if I'm not the lead, but I have a ton of access to housing services, I need to throw my support behind the person who is the lead. And that's where we need to kind of put that energy. So I totally agree with you. There does need to be one person. And the accountability is just as much for the unsheltered residents as well. They deserve accountability as well, right? They are so used to new faces every single day, a new resource, a new promise, a new assessment to fill out, that having accountability to them as well and saying, I'm going to be the consistent face getting you through this is also very powerful.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's one of the more critical pieces of this conversation as well, in terms of developing a consistent approach to each of these efforts, because I feel like in each area, it's been a different model and effort. And, you know, I think that's why for me, it's really important that we try to memorialize this to have consistency in our city. You know, Howard, I just want to go back to you, Howard, very quickly. On, you mentioned the 90 days, and then we had an extension with LA Family Housing that was requested. But of the items that were stored, that were bag tagged and stored, how many of those items remained and were then discarded, or that people came back to? What was the, I don't know, either percentage, tonnage, you know, what, if you could provide some insight?
Councilman Rodriguez, to respond to that, I don't have specific numbers. I currently do not believe any of that property was claimed that was stored.
Okay. Yeah,
we can look into that. We can definitely look back into that.
That would be helpful. And I know I want to avail an opportunity for any of my colleagues to ask questions as well. But Victor, you know, we talked about a 30-day advance engagement. And I just wanted to get your opinion on that and the reflection of, is that a sufficient amount of time? You know, I know there was, again, going back to Paxton and Bradley, it was a much longer time period, but it took a while before we had that kind of very same structured approach. So could you provide some insight on the 30-day engagement?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the time period needs to be informed by the housing availability, the interim or permanent housing availability. So once we know the date that we anticipate that housing to come online to provide the residents of the encampment, as well as all the outreach workers supporting them, at least 30 days now with a deadline to refocus the work with that specific date in the future in mind. If that timeline isn't long enough, it can be hard to make sure that everybody fully understands what the expectations will be once we hit that date. So 30 days does feel like a good, robust amount of time once we know that that housing will be available at the end of that period to prepare everybody for this process.
Terrific. And then one of my last questions is just with respect to, well, you know what? I'm going to save that question because I've already talked about that LAPD, and you know, if you guys want to underscore that there was an LAPD involvement. In fact, we were just intentional about we don't need you here, and I thought that went really extraordinarily well. I want to really kind of underscore that the larger the encampment, the more challenging of a process that it presents to us because of a communal, philosophy of everyone wanting to go together. It becomes, that way, and I know it makes it far more difficult to find that many numbers of units available at one time to make those accommodations. But I want to stop with that for now and just offer that opportunity for my colleagues to ask any questions that they might have.
So thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Thank you for your leadership on this. And thank you to the teams, Victor and Howard and Aylin and Pepe and everyone who was involved in this. It just underscores the magnitude of the forces that we have to marshal to do this with a great, the utmost care. In housing 65 people when we have 41,000 plus who are homeless within the city limits of Los Angeles. And hearing this is comforting, very much so because of the success of it, and it's wonderful, and I want to congratulate everyone, but it also just underscores what we're up against as well. So a few questions I have, starting with sanitation, and then I'll go into LASA. So I would love, Howard and Pepe, just to hear the real deal here. The department has various funding challenges, hiring freezes, budget cuts, potential furloughs. Take a stab at addressing how we could be more robust in a process like this, considering the unprecedented challenges we currently have now and in the coming weeks and months with the deficit we're holding. Do you have any remarks about that?
That's a really tough, difficult question. Yeah, we understand that along with staffing challenges and vacancies, we're also hit by the COVID-19, CDC guidelines and protocols and close contact. So we're putting all that into perspective. And to summarize it, we are in the process of kind of reevaluating what cards we have today, if you want to put it in layman's terms. In other words, the model that was originally adopted and approved, it's with its current state of vacancies, will probably be disappointing. So the reality is, what model can I present that will be robust and nimble enough to address all different categories? To the point where, right now to providing basic, weekly trash collection at these encampments everywhere, we're not the bad guy when we get to these encampments, and we're providing a service. But maybe Victor and I have talked about it maybe in the past, historically in the past, but maybe kind of to kind of renew. If my staff is out there providing services at locations that we're collecting weekly trash, that we can have a contact information and maybe be another source of eyes and ears out there for LAHSA staff, because we're not always tethered together. So
let me lean in real quick here, Pepe, since you asked that. Have you been given that information in terms of a contact or a lead at an existing encampment once one is established and that trust is established? Or do you have to wait for someone from LAHSA to make contact with that person when sanitation resources are ready to go and ready to drive right to the location? Do you have to wait to make contact, or because you always have to go through LAHSA because of policy, or are you now able to directly contact that leader in an encampment?
To try to summarize that, COVID's brought a different perspective, right? We're no longer, Victor and I are no longer in constant communication through the authorization process. So it's kind of taken a back seat, if you want to say. But as we service these encampments, I think that, and we kind of consolidate our resources, and I'm sure LAHSA is facing the same staffing struggles. We could be just more eyes. No, I don't think it has to do with any kind of policy or protocol. I think that in the past, we had that constant pendulum going back and forth, where we would service something and we would let LAHSA know that we're going somewhere, and it was that constant flow. I think it's kind of taken a pause. Victor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that re-dialoguing that conversation, where my staff, when they're out there just servicing, have the same information or contact, or be able to forward information to LAHSA, supervise, or whoever's in charge of that particular area, zone, or their area of responsibility. So
Bobby, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Everyone's working really hard, but let's cut to the chase. A lot of these encampments have existed for months, if not years. LAHSA goes out regularly. They establish contact. Sanitation goes out on a regular basis as well. So those systems are in place. Have you reduced steps so that sanitation can make contact with the person that LAHSA has earned the trust, and let them know, because they can't be everywhere at all times, that this person from sanitation is going to contact you and come by with a truck, and as Aidan said, so that the folks are ready to gather discarded or contaminated items or garbage, ready for sanitation just to pick up. That system should be in place. It should be very easy. There should be no and no CDC guidelines apply here. It should simply be a system that should already be in place. So is it or not? Do you have to just to make that contact and deliver that service? That's what I'm still not clear on.
Councilman O'Farrell, this is Howard Wong. Currently within sanitation's care and care plus teams, we do have that service with or without LAHSA, but it works better with another service provider there to engage the unsheltered individual first with outreach services, and then we're there as a backup. If they would like to, what we call it, spot cleaning operations, where our teams are out there, we're engaging in those areas as well. Like Aileen mentioned, certain parts of the CDs, our teams are engaging with the unsheltered individuals directly on a one-on-one. We know their names, they know our names, they know we're coming. There is nothing stopping sanitation and or in the ordinance for voluntary disposal of trash and debris, providing trash bag services to the unsheltered individuals, removing health hazards, line of sight, things of that nature. So we're doing that now. We are.
Councilman, I would just love to echo Chief Wong's statement there. A year plus into the CARE program, we've seen some really amazing relationships develop between the environmental compliance inspectors and the folks on the solid side with people at the encampments, and working directly when we're there, when we're not, in identifying the trash, the debris, the items to be picked up, and that's been one of my favorite parts about this program is seeing those relationships develop between sanitation and those encampments.
Great, I appreciate that. So the other question, real quickly, sanitation, and Lassa and Monica, Ms. Rodriguez, what other agencies or organizations were part of this this rollout, this addressing Paxton Bradley? Any other organizations or agencies?
No, I mean, it was LASA, LA Family Housing, Sanitation, and my office. And Katz, I mean, we had to get, there was, I think the longest part of this problem was Caltrans, to be honest. Caltrans, Aylin, I think you could probably, Victor, you guys could probably corroborate this. Caltrans was going back and forth on whether or not we had actual authority to do it. But, obviously, given the conversations that we're having with Judge Carter and the experience that we had with Caltrans at this particular location to really establish that, we are going to have that authority to, because, I mean, if, again, having that state agency prohibit our engagement in that area was part of the bigger problem, to be honest. I think that held up most of the time of the coordination. But once we got that, we were able to roll very quickly. And I think it has now helped to really memorialize and establish citywide what our authority is as it relates to overpasses and our ability to help address these issues. So I think that was also one of the, really positive outcomes that resulted from this effort.
Yeah, thank you. Jurisdictional obstacles have been an issue with Caltrans. I have freeways crisscrossing my district. I've been dealing with them for 18 years. It's always a challenge, and I think that with the explosion of homelessness, it's only made that obstacle more pronounced, especially during COVID. So this is one area where Judge Carter could really help Los Angeles with just handing the jurisdiction over to us, quite frankly.
Right, which this pretty much did. Even before Judge Carter, because I had taken Judge Carter up. I met with Judge Carter prior to Paxton and Bradley and had him come out after, once we started engaging in more formal conversation. So it was part of what ignited, his interest, in particular with respect to overpass encampment. And I think, given the efforts that we're now deploying with Project Home Key, the extension of Project Room Key, it enables us to actually, this is kind of, for Willy Wonka fans, the golden ticket. This is a very unique moment in time for us to really help connect these individuals associated with, especially with particular respect to the settlement that we are, negotiating right now with the county and the resources related to Judge Carter, for us to kind of connect all these dots in a manner that will help accelerate the progress very quickly for our communities. And I think that's why this has been so important to me, for us to really memorialize how we did this so that we can have the same level of success across the city.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned the Project Room Key extension that we approved yesterday. There's considerable anxiety over that coming to an end in the city of Los Angeles, but we extended it until March 21st of 2021 yesterday in council unanimously. So all of the Project Room Key sites that are within the city limits, whether they're county administered or city administered, will continue fully funded until March 21st, while we look for the longer term solutions for everyone who is being serviced through this program. And of course, we've now acquired Project Home Key buildings across the city, those buildings are being prepared for move-in at this as we speak, and so we're getting all of that in order, and this will give us the time to deal with those loose ends, so to speak. My only other question, in relation to LASA, and Aylin, you mentioned you had a list of 35 people, and then you went in, and of course, more folks took you up on the offer, which is fantastic. We understand the LASA's policy in terms of data sharing, and this data is very, very important, and there are various policies and concerns and even laws, legal, that have to be considered. Does LASA have actual lists and actual opened cases and actual documentation of the number of times people have been reached out to over a various period of time, whether it be 3 months, 6 months, or a year, or whatever? In other words, how well documented is all of that? Because all these years later, I'm still very unclear on what LASA's process is on outreach and documentation.
Thank you, Council Member. All of the services that outreach workers, whether they're LASA homeless engagement teams or one of the multidisciplinary teams funded through the Department of Health Services, the services that we provide to unsheltered participants get recorded in the Homelessness Management Information System. That's the central database that we use to record all of those services. So as long as we have obtained that individual's name and identifying information, we can then tie those services to that record, and we can track long-term ongoing services to that individual. Oftentimes, as we're first getting to know folks, we won't have all of that information, and so we'll create profiles to start recording some of that, and then merge into the official profile once we obtain all that information. So it's all recorded in that centralized database, but we are only recording the services that we do provide. So if we go and we talk to somebody and they say that, for whatever reason today they're not ready to accept any of the services that we're offering, that conversation wouldn't necessarily go into the database, but once we're making those referrals, once we're providing those services, once we're making those connections, that all gets recorded in the HMIS system.
Thank you, Victor. Does that initial contact or even subsequent contacts where an individual refuses to provide their name because of the trust issues that we talk about, is that at least documented? Is that piece documented, or is there no record of even that initial attempt?
I can jump in on that, Victor, because it is a little bit, that one's a little bit more of the how does the service provider choose to do that. There's some guidance on how you can. For us, you'll find some interesting HMIS profiles that I always get annoyed when someone uses someone's shirt color. Like at least put something in there that's not going to change on the day-to-day. But we will create a profile so legally we can have someone not engaged who hasn't given us their information, and you just mark them not engaged in our system so that you can put in a descriptor and start to track information that way. We'll track in case notes if someone told us they didn't want services that day, but that's harder to pull that data. The data that we can pull when people ask us, hey, how many people are in this area and what does this look like? That's gonna come more from we geotag locations. When we meet with someone, we do an assessment in HMIS that is a location assessment. So now we can, for the first time in as long as I've worked in LA County, we can now pull based on a geography that we define in HMIS, which is very cool. And I'm really excited about it. It's going to do a lot for our ability to not have to keep a lot of spreadsheets every time we start a project like this. So we've really worked hard with the outreach workers in the last 2 years to be able to really track some of this information. We also use length of engagement in our system to help us prioritize. So we encourage our outreach workers to, even if it's a brief description of someone and them continuously saying, no, I don't want anything, no, you don't have anything to offer me that is going to work for me. If I can see that as someone prioritizing, I'm going to know that that person might need a little bit more. We need to go and do a little bit more sort of engagement. So we do use that information to try and engage further and to prioritize people who are saying not today. It's only in the last 3 months that we've been able to pull information like that from HMIS. And it's taken us this amount of buildup to get our outreach teams really trained up enough that the data they're putting in is worth analyzing. So I feel good about where we're at now, but I get the historical inability to get good data when we do these projects. But I think we have a better system starting to work.
I appreciate that, Aylin, and I appreciate the work of both you and Victor for your extensive thought processes on all this. So you mentioned you encourage the outreach workers, then you mentioned outreach workers with various agencies can document this hardest of all to document casework. So it seems that it perhaps should always be documented rather than be optional, even if it's a difficult to compel person that their trust has to be earned. It would seem that should be a requirement in the process, both for LAHSA rather than encourage, then perhaps to require, and then of course any other outreach worker with any other agency, so that we get standardized all that, because that's a really key piece of the documentation. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, Mr. O'Farrell, if I could just jump in really quick, that's the whole intent of developing this, so that we actually have that framework that is consistently applied at every encampment among all the different service providers. That's exactly why I'm developing these protocols, because that currently doesn't exist. It's not memorialized, and it's no one's being held accountable to that standard. And I wanted this to be the standard by which all of those outreach, those that are on contract with LAHSA, that LAHSA has their piece, LA Family House, whatever the spa lead or whatever the outreach is, that we're going to be holding that pattern consistent across the board, because that's exactly the problem that doesn't currently exist. And that's the purpose of all of this, all of these components that I'm bringing forward today. But Aylin,
right.
We wanted to.
I was just going to say, I don't disagree. I think you have to be careful about how you do it, because there is something to be said for choice in not wanting to engage with me, right? And I think being really clear on the application and the rules of how we would ask an outreach worker to document that, because I don't want a description that is harmful in HMIS about this person. I don't want information that's going to almost like create bias against them. And so I think I agree there needs to be standardization on that. And I definitely think having documentation of people we encounter who are challenging is important. It's a very, very fine line between taking away someone's, freedom to say no to me, say, no, I don't want to engage. And I just think we have to be really careful with that and respecting that choice.
Agreed. And I wouldn't want to bias anything either, but we need to at least say this person was outreached to, even if it's just a simple yes or no, so that the person isn't judged at all. It's just were they outreached to, were they accepting initially yes or no? I think that's important to know without bias. So this process, I would argue that this process needs to really be advanced and discussed and fine-tuned with all of these concerns addressed, Aylin, that you just mentioned, so that there's already enough implicit bias in all forms of government, so we certainly wouldn't want it here either. But absent of that, there's a complete lack of data, which we can't have either, because if we're really, really going to make advances in putting the vast majority of folks who are experiencing homelessness under a roof, we're going to have all the data points that we could possibly get, so we can be better informed on our approach. So thank you for that. Mr. Bonin, Mr. Rue, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions for me. I just wanted to quickly say this is very, very promising. I really want to thank the leadership of Councilmember Monica Rodriguez. This is something that I was trying to do in my part of the district with a Hollywood Forward, working with my local providers, which was PATH and others, on trying to come up with some sort of systematized format with whatever we call it, it doesn't matter, but enhanced outreach, right? And I think this is very, very promising. I really thank you for your success, Councilmember Rodriguez, and sharing that with us. But the biggest impediment, and as you've been talking about, Mr. Chair, is we need to take this citywide. We can't have this district by district approach, and I think Councilmember Rodriguez's approach is a good template. I mean, yes, is every encampment going to be a little bit different? Is every district going to be a little bit different? Yes, but we do need some sort of base template that we could all agree on and work with. And I think, and the biggest impediment is making sure we have a citywide approach, not a district by district approach or encampment by encampment approach or provider by provider approach, which just makes the system a lot more frustrating for us, the council offices, as well as sanitation or the neighborhoods or the encampment themselves. So I really applaud you, Councilman Rodriguez. You took this a lot further. I was more in the beginning preliminary stages, trying to work with all the different stakeholders. But and I have told them about this, and I'm going to make sure Hollywood Forward, which Councilman O'Farrell and I both work with, reaches out to you so that they could learn what you've done, so we could try to replicate it in our neck of the woods. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. And thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. This has been a wonderful discussion. Any last remarks?
Yeah, I do. And thank you, Mr. Rue, for the comments, and thank you, Mr. O'Farrell, for allowing me the opportunity to present this today, because my goal is to have this be the framework of how we do this citywide, because I think we need consistency as a city. That has been, we've all talked about it. We've talked about it multiple times. We've talked about it in council with respect to other policies, and it wasn't getting done. And the reason why, we all pulled together, and again, I thank all the different departments and agencies that were involved, was because we really needed to outline exactly who's on first, at what stage, at what time, so that we can execute these efforts in a consistent fashion, because that doesn't exist. And no one was pulling it together. So that's what we've pulled together for you all today. And I want this to, my goal is to have it reflected and considered and adopted as part of our citywide effort, so that we do have that consistent application citywide. It should not be a district by district effort. And this framework is one that is easily adopted. It could be easily adopted citywide, because it does memorialize all the tenets of the concerns that we had in terms of how do we document who was outreached to in that moment at that date. It establishes all of those consistently. And what we need is, and that's why I'm so thankful for lots of participation and LA Family Housing. It helps to really ingrain exactly all of those consistent applications in outreach that we need to have happen, because it's not happening citywide. And so we needed to develop that framework, and that's what this is. I just do have some, the one question I want to have with sanitation is what authorities and action would be needed in order for us to move forward with adopting and implementing these procedures. I don't know, Pepe or Domingo or Howard.
You know what? To best answer that, I'd like to turn it over to Gabriel, who manages that day-to-day stuff. Gabriel, if you don't mind.
Right. Thank you, Pepe. Hi, council member. And to answer the question, we would definitely need to resume comprehensive cleanups in order to conduct a posted notice operation. So that is one thing that would be required in order to be able to fulfill these type of operations, similar to what was done at Paxton and Bradley.
Okay. So,
Monica, if I could just lean in real quick to Gabriel. Gabriel, so we've heard a lot, and colleagues, we've heard a lot over the past several months, and the term cleanups has become an incendiary term, because sometimes it gets replaced with the word sweeps, which is a misnomer. And so if you could describe, Gabriel, and anyone else in sanitation, what these comprehensive care plus days of service include. I can describe them. I've been to many of them, and I've told what they include: showers and service and casework and everything else. From sanitation's perspective, when we sanitize the sidewalks and we haul away discarded items and the other contaminated items, including oftentimes, rodents and syringes, which is just a reality. Could you talk about what these Care Plus days of service entail in some detail? And the intrusion, Ms. Rodriguez, but I think this is an important point.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Councilmember O'Farrell. And if I can, I'll give an example of the Care Plus operations that are currently taking place around a bridge home. The enhanced services built upon the foundation of a services-led approach with the CARE program is something that we developed and incorporated. As discussed earlier with the mobile hygiene unit, using that platform and providing much needed bathroom and shower services to the unhoused and having that there on site during the Care Plus operation is important to allow folks to utilize these services. Additionally, we have partnered with LAFD to conduct, as they do the mobile COVID testing, whether that is in advance or on the day of, that coordination and collaboration is there as well. Additionally to that is our tent exchange. It's something that is very important to ensure that folks still have the ability to shelter in place during a comprehensive operation, and being able to distribute these tents at these cleanup operations for the Care Plus services. And obviously the distribution of sanitary kits, basic personal protective equipment such as a face mask, nitro gloves. These services have been incorporated into the Care Plus model around a bridge home, and leading with these services and incorporating some of the pressure washing that we're doing on the right-of-way to thoroughly sanitize during these cleanup operations. So the Care Plus are posted around a bridge home. There is permanent signage, but anywhere outside, if a Care Plus operation were to take place, it does require the posted notice. This is 24-hour notice to the individuals that there will be an operation taking place at a particular location. And it is comprehensive in the approach, as Chief Wong mentioned earlier. Any property that is on site, whether it's abandoned, we go through and screen these items and make sure that these items are not discarded. They are stored for 90 days. It's part of the chain of custody that we manage through these operations. But it all falls behind conducting that posted notice comprehensive cleanup.
Thank you so much, Gabriel, and thank you for your indulgence, Ms. Rodriguez. Please do continue.
No problem. And, again, I want to express my thanks about hearing this item. I think Mr. Bonin, I know I've talked to Marquise about it. I don't believe Mr. Bonin is on anymore, unfortunately. And this represents an important body of work that was successful in my district, but I believe provided the mechanics and as I mentioned, the framework of how I believe we could be successful citywide. I've made no secret about it. To have 100% of these individuals placed, and many of them, we monitor the progress of these individuals and how they've matriculated to other housing solutions, more permanent, is something that has been ongoing, that we continue to monitor the success of. But we are going to be provided with this very unique moment, given the resources that will be provided by the county with respect to the Judge Carter work and the amount of facilities that are going to be made available through Home Key and Room Key. This is the right moment. And so I would really like us to get to a point where this could be adopted so that we can take it to council for full adoption for a citywide effort, because I think that's what we need. This is, we've done the due diligence for the purposes of saving my colleagues and everyone else from fighting, being in the struggle and the frustration of not having a consistent process that everyone can refer to citywide. And so I know, Mr. Chair, again, I want us to get to that point, and I would indulge and seek, my colleagues' support to help get us to that point where we could, reflect on this item with the support to move it forward. And so I want to thank you for the opportunity of the discussion today. And I would encourage, as a next step, and consideration at a future meeting, and hopefully not too distant future, to adopt these procedures utilized at Paxton and Bradley as a model for citywide implementation, which would entail legislative action to resume Care Plus and 5611 at Judge Carter's site specific to facilitate the management of the property and post-housing resources for the individuals who campus those locations. So with that, I just want to say thank you all again to all of our partners, for all of your work in this. It represents, frankly, a huge success that I'm so proud of. But again, we recognize everyone's contribution to help get it there. And of course, I want to thank my incredible staffer, Paola Lapignana, who I know has worked so tirelessly with all of you on this particular success. So with that, Mr. Chair, I want to thank you, and I look forward to revisiting this item hopefully very, very, very soon in the new year.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Agreed. And we really do thank you for your leadership on this and the opportunity to daylight this very successful outcome, working with your partners from LAHSA and Sanitation and your team and your staff. This is really terrific, and it underscores the level of planning, the work, the execution, and then the follow-up. And it'll be a constant. There's not a binary approach to addressing homelessness or this humanitarian crisis. It takes a lot of creativity, and of course, there's no cookie-cutter approach either. However, we do need to develop systems that are consistently rolled out and employed across the city. That much is certain, and so we congratulate you on this, and I look very forward to pushing this forward after today's discussion item. Thank you. Colleagues, now I'd like to move to item
Mr.
5.
Chair, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Oh, yes. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I know this is on that note, Mr. Chair, I was just wondering, I know this is a report back today. Is there any way we could push this forward and take it to the next step to maybe ask for, for a more robust protocol to be a template for how this could be used for citywide, or
Well, so Mr. Reed, this was agendized as a discussion item, so we couldn't re-agendize it on the spot here. But there are active conversations about making this an agenda item that we can then waive out of committee and to council. So those conversations are happening, and so I think what we'll do is we'll reflect on this conversation, and we'll go there. And my office is going to work very closely with Ms. Rodriguez's office on next steps.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Having said that, we'll go to item 5. Ms. Amatia, if you could please read item 5.
Item number 5, motion O'Farrell-Martinez relative to the application for the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Round 2 funding.
Thank you so much. And colleagues, I'm about to explain all this, and you're about to get a presentation. Serving as the chair of the Homelessness and Poverty Committee is definitely one of the most impactful and meaningful, substantive experiences that I've had since taking office 7.5 years ago. And since my first day as chair of this committee, I have prioritized streamlining housing production to increase our city's supply of affordable and permanent supportive housing units. And as a committee, we collectively have made great strides in this endeavor. When the pandemic hit in March, our city departments collaborated at an unprecedented level, prioritizing the successful rapid housing of over 6,000 of the most vulnerable COVID-19 Angelenos through Project Room Key, which we referred to earlier. And yesterday, as I mentioned, we approved extending the Project Room Key sites using our HAP funds, which will be eventually reimbursed by FEMA. That was a very, very creative approach to doing this because the ultimate cost to our HAP funding will be $1.6 million to extend this program until at least the end of March to prevent people temporarily sheltered from ending up back on the streets and to ensure a smoother transition into our longer-term housing solutions by virtue of the immediate acquisition of 15 properties through the Home Key program, also previously referenced. In addition to Project Home Key, all of us on the City Council have worked tirelessly in our respective council districts to open several Bridge home sites, with over 24 more on the way. Operational, safe parking sites, with more coming, cabin communities that are getting built or getting the contracts drawn right now in the case of my district, funded and on the drawing boards, and other permanent supportive housing projects not in these categories, funded through traditional sources to support our unhoused residents. The city and its residents have also made a commitment to prioritizing our housing crises by not only investing hundreds of millions of dollars through our homelessness roadmap interventions, but also through our voter-approved measures H and HHH proposition. In terms of measure HHH, so far, we've committed 98% of the $1.2 billion of funding to build 111 desperately needed housing projects across the city. So the HHH expenditure, combined with other public funding sources, will get to the 10,000 units and beyond that were conveyed to voters back in 2016 when HHH was on the ballot. That means that right now, 9,500 units of the 10,000 are either complete, nearing completion with people or finished with people living in them, under construction, entitled, construction documents being prepared, or are in design. And I just want to repeat that as much as I can, because no one here and no one in the city is going to say that's nearly enough, but it represents a successfully rolled out program and with incredible oversight to the very end. Again, 9,500 units out the door, as I said, in various stages of production and completion. According to LOS's 2020 point in time count, there were over 41,000 people experiencing homelessness in the city of LA alone, a statistic captured prior to the COVID-19 pandemic that has only exacerbated our housing crises. Although HHH and Measure H and HAP provide some of the necessary funding to address this crisis, it isn't enough to ensure that every Angeleno can be on a path toward wellness. In fact, if I could snap my fingers and we'd have the 9,500 units ready for move-in tomorrow, it would only house slightly less than 1/4 of our population in need. Due to this, I took action a year and a half ago and authored a resolution demanding that our Sacramento colleagues, our state legislators, rise to the occasion and match the $1.2 billion contribution that Angelenos voted on back in 2016, taxing themselves to radically reduce our homelessness population through HHH. I followed that up with an aggressive lobbying effort, flying to Sacramento multiple times and even meetings in Los Angeles, making the case to senators and assembly members across the state of California about the gravity of our crises here in Los Angeles and how that was relevant to the statewide crises. My agenda for Los Angeles was memorialized when Assemblymember Miguel Santiago, placed funding allocations commensurate with the need to address homelessness across the state when he authored AB 3300, which would allocate $2 billion statewide yearly for 10 years for services and housing. This would mean that since the city of Los Angeles has nearly 1/3 of all unhoused people in the entire state of California, we would receive the most significant state funding in orders of magnitude over a 10-year period, far surpassing the amounts allocated currently by the state in these previous 2 years, which have been nowhere near the amounts needed to service and house our homeless residents, but they sure are helping. There's no doubt about that. But we need to multiply that times 10 if we want to house 41,000 folks. COVID-19 hit just as AB 3300, with broad support, by the way, in both houses, was moving through the state legislative process. But it is on the docket again in the state legislative session, now getting underway. So I encourage everyone who's listening, you can lobby your state assembly and state senate in support of 3300 because it's being revisited now. Even with additional funding, that is not the only obstacle to ensuring that we adequately deliver and follow through with our promises to the public. For example, Measure H is county specific, and even though we expect them to do their share and provide the desperately needed services, that is not always the case. And sometimes the city has to step in to cover the service cost that the county is contractually obligated to be responsible for. You've heard that a lot in this committee. You've heard that a lot on the council floor. This, folks, is an issue. And it's very germane to the homelessness and humanitarian crises in Los Angeles. For instance, earlier this year, myself and 6 colleagues put forward a motion on behalf of the 41,000 plus individuals who are experiencing homelessness in the city to hold the county departments of public health accountable for its failure to provide contractually obligated, adequate health, mental health, and supportive services for people experiencing homelessness. The 1964 model in this contractual agreement do not work in 2020. On another occasion, I asked the county to partner with the city to explore the opportunity to reopen St. Vincent Medical Center with its current owner, Patrick Soon-Shong, in an attempt to bring back the 366-bed facility, which used to provide necessary medical and mental health services to the most vulnerable residents in the 13th district and beyond, which now sits empty. It has sat empty for 6 months now. So I implore the owner of the Los Angeles Times to work with the city and the county to revive St. Vincent so we can turn it into an acute care facility for people experiencing homelessness. Regardless of all these efforts, the amount of funding that we have in our housing supply to address assisting people already experiencing homelessness is woefully inadequate, not to mention assisting the thousands of Angelenos on the brink of homelessness, which our council has been furiously trying to address since COVID started and before that. That is why last year, my office partnered with HCID LA to host the first ever Summit on Poverty Prevention to identify innovative solutions to alleviate poverty in Los Angeles by convening key diverse stakeholders from different sectors across the city and the county. The event and subsequent report discuss the actions we can take to break the cycles of poverty and keep people from falling into homelessness. We need to identify and fundamentally address the root causes of poverty and homelessness. We are to ever develop the lasting solutions people are rightfully advocating for. Since the summit, the pandemic has magnified the gravity of these challenges. According to a May 2020 UCLA Luskin study, the most optimistic estimate is that 36,000 renter households, including 56,000 children in LA County, this is the county of which we are 40% of the population, are likely to become homeless due to the effects of the coronavirus. We have to continue the work that this council has already done to prevent this terrifying statistic from becoming a reality, such as the COVID-19 Emergency Eviction Defense Program that I co-introduced with Council President Martinez, which we all unanimously got behind and supported. This provides legal assistance and education to keep Angelenos housed, and the citywide $100 million COVID-19 Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which is still being drawn down, helping well over 50,000 households. These are citywide initiatives in addition to the efforts that many council members, including myself, reprioritize discretionary funding to help renters in our own districts. We did that with $1 million of discretionary that we reallocated away from public works projects into just paying rent for folks, and another $1 million to help small businesses. And now, colleagues, I introduced this motion that we're hearing now, authorizing the city administrative officer to apply for the second round of California's Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program, otherwise known as HAP, funding. We're now eligible to receive up to $55 million in HAP Round 2 funding that our city desperately needs. The application window is short, as you're about to hear. I'm instructing the CAO and the CLA to report back to this council with recommendations for funding categories based on the input of various stakeholders to further support our interventions that move homeless individuals and their families into permanent supportive housing or to maintain their housing during this time of emergency. So I want to thank all of you for hearing me out, and we do have the CAO and the CLA's office, I understand. We probably have Ms. Chavez and Ms. Barclay and perhaps others, but as soon as you're ready, ladies, if you could please let me know and we'll start a few questions.
Yes, hello, Councilman, this is Meg Barclay. Can you hear me?
I certainly can. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Ms.
Of course.
So did we open, oh, Ms. Chavez, I'm sorry. Is that you? Okay, so Ms. Barclay, did the state open the application process?
Yes, the state opened the application process actually a little bit earlier than they had anticipated. It opened on the 25th of November, and so the applications are due on the 23rd of January.
Okay, so we were a little nervous because it's a 2-month window, so I'm glad, a leg up now. I understand we didn't get notified as early as last time. Do we know?
No, that's correct. They notified us of the window prior to the guidelines having been released. Usually we'd see a draft of the guidelines. So the guidelines are new, as I understand it, and I haven't had, there was a webinar walking through the application requirements. They're more complicated than they have been in the past, and we have less time than we had on the previous 2 state allocations to prepare the application. So we are going to be spending time over the next couple of weeks getting prepared to apply and speaking to council offices about priorities, especially as they relate to the categories. So similar to the past 2 state allocations, we would look at recommending categories and then allocating funds to specific projects or programs within those categories after the state approves our application. So but we will have much less time to do that kind of stakeholder outreach than we've had in the past, and also less time to complete a more complicated application. So we're going to be pushing pretty hard in the next few weeks to get that all prepared and report back to the Homelessness and Poverty Committee and the City Council prior to submitting the application by January 23rd.
Okay, so it's a tight timeline, clearly. Now, are other details that are needed? Do you have your arms around those details in order to be prepared to submit the application? Do you feel that you have all those details?
I'm sure we have the information that we need to prepare the application. I think it's probably there are more narrative and probably more existing data requirements that go with the funding that the city's already been allocated in order to be able to meet the deadline. So we'll be working on getting our arms around all of that and being prepared to apply on time, if not early. Last year, we were the first municipality to apply for for the first round of HAP funding, and we will continue to be to eagerly apply so that we can get the funding as soon as possible.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Barkley. I don't really have any other questions. Just I want to let CAO's office get back to its work, since it's going to take a couple of weeks, and let us know what other support you may need. Colleagues, questions? Ms. Rodriguez? I think perhaps no.
No questions. No.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rue, any questions for CAO's office? Okay. Well, that then is it. We're good to yeah. We're good to take a vote, I believe.
Just one thing, Mr. O'Farrell, if you don't mind. I meant to say when discussing the what we'd be looking at as a part of the application, one of the really important factors in determining what the recommendations would be is we're doing a pretty thorough assessment of the need for ongoing support for all of the roadmap sites and the bridge home sites that have been that are up and running. As you know, most of those are funded for operations with either the HEAP funding or the first round of HAP funding, or in some cases, as it goes with the roadmap, the CARES Act ESG funding, and so we don't have ongoing sources of funding to keep those sites operating, and so that will be one thing that we'll need to look at, is what the ongoing need for operating funds are for those, especially in light of, as you're all aware, all of the challenges that we have with the city budget and the low likelihood that there would be general funds available to continue to support the operations of those sites. But as a part, we'll be doing that in addition to seeking input as we go through and come back with those recommendations in January.
Terrific. It just underscores again what we're up against, and is a motivating factor for not losing any time and for moving forward as expeditiously as we possibly can in a very focused manner. Lots at stake.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
No further questions. Anything else to add, Ms. Barkley?
No, thank you for indulging me.
Oh, that's all right. Okay, Mr. Villanueva, if you could please call the roll.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Councilmember Mitchell Farrell?
Aye.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez?
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Bonin? Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson? Councilmember David Rue?
Aye.
The item is approved, sir.
Thank you. Well, colleagues, as this is the last Homelessness and Poverty Committee of the year, last hearing of the year, I want to thank all the departments and all of the people, all of the wonderful professionals that make this work possible, including the CAO's office, CLA's office, Bureau of Sanitation, LASA, HCID. We've had input from the mayor's office, all folks who have weighed in, given their expertise, and helped this committee along through the last year. We certainly appreciate that. And I really want to thank my fellow committee members, Mr. Bonin, who had to duck out and has another commitment, Mr. Harris Dawson, who wasn't able to join us today, Ms. Rodriguez, of course, and Mr. Rue. And this is Mr. Rue's last appearance at the Homelessness and Poverty Committee. And Mr. Rue, I just want to say that I so deeply appreciate your passion and your belief in the mission that you have been on for your entire professional career, and the understanding of the complexities of this issue based on your professional experience, and what you've added to the discussion and the conversation. We deeply appreciate it. You've been extremely helpful in helping to frame some of these conversations, and I think one of the takeaways that we can all have from that is just looking beyond whatever the administrative or even bureaucratic hurdles are of just making something happen. And so it's always good to have that approach. We can all, especially with the stakes so high on so many levels of government, local, all the way to federal, and with the issues that are so serious. We literally are handling life and death issues. It doesn't get more serious than that. We collectively, as a body, as a constituency, as a city, have to look way beyond obstacles and barriers, many of our own making, to break those barriers down, eliminate them, and move forward for real solutions with a great sense of urgency. And so I pretty much just let you all know my New Year's resolution a little early. Mr. Rue, thank you so much for your impact on this committee, and we shall miss you. And would you like to have any remarks?
Just make it short. I just really want to thank you for your leadership, Chairman Mitch O'Farrell, and being such a great colleague and a neighbor, especially when it comes to the homeless issues. We shared one of the biggest borders in one of the high homeless concentration areas. So it was always a pleasure working with you and your staff. We collaborated all the time. We had to collaborate. There was no other choice because, but in this committee, thank you for your leadership and thank you for pushing the agenda forward like you did today, with Councilman Rodriguez's issue. And it's been a pleasure working with all of my colleagues on this committee, Councilmember Rodriguez, Harris Dawson, and Bonin. And thank you for, you probably have the toughest committee out of any other committee, but I know that you guys can tackle this issue going forward and solve it. And I really appreciate your collegiality and your friendship and your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez.
Well, we're going to miss you, David. I appreciate you. I'm going to miss all the sour cream and onion potato chips. But no, I'm going to miss you. But, I know we're still going to see each other outside of this world because you're a friend. And thank you for everything that you've done while you served on this council.
Well said, both of you. And just lastly, collectively, the 15 members of the Los Angeles City Council, current, past, and present, we all share the collective goals and the missions of moving this city forward. So no matter what committees a person is on or what committees a person chairs, we all work together, we argue, debate, and land on solutions that have been put through the sausage maker. We do that at the local level all the time. And so that's my parting remark, that the issues that are important to each and every one of us, collectively and individually, we will press on with, and that includes me as well. And so with that, Mr. Villanueva, do we have anything else pending for this committee?
The desk is clear, sir.
All right. Well, I wish everyone a happy holidays. Please be very, very careful out there as the coronavirus surges. Be safe, be smart, protect yourself and your family, and have a blessed New Year. Thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned.